Hi, my name is Steve Kimball, and I'm going to tell you, I'm Chase Kimball's dad. I'm going to tell you a story about what I did when I was 16 years old, a very stupid game called car tag. And I hope that nobody ever follows this example. But back in 1980, when I was just 16, I'd had my license for about 6 months, and my dad had bought a brand new Honda Accord. And it was a nice car. My dad was a traveling salesman, so he always had to have nice cars. And I talked him into letting me take the Honda Accord out on a Friday night. So I was with some friends, and my really good friend Scott Ford had a Volkswagen Scirocco, which back then was a really kind of a sporty car, nice, and of course he asked his dad to take the car that night as well. So 4 of us got together, and we came up with this great idea of playing a game called car tag. I honestly don't know how long we talked about it, maybe 10 seconds. And the whole premise behind the game is you chase each other through the streets, and you have to bump bumpers. So I tag him, and then he's it, and so we switch places, and then he has to chase me through the streets. And unfortunately, when you're playing a game like this and you've got a couple guys that are very competitive, it gets a little out of control, high speeds through neighborhoods, really, really stupid things to do. So the game started off as going around in circles really fast, and I can't remember how we decided, but it was somehow whoever came out of the circle first was the person that was going to be chased first. And no, the person that would chase first. So we went around in circles really fast. I think the Scirocco handled better, so I ended up losing. So I had to play tag first. So we took off from the parking lot of Smith's Food and Drug and took off through the neighborhoods. I went to Brighton High School, and so those neighborhoods up there there was a lot of windy roads, so we took off straight for the windy roads, and was having a lot of fun playing like we were race car drivers trying to tag each other. So I tagged Scott first, switched places, we went through other places, he tagged me. In the meantime, we probably ran through 4 or 5 stop signs and literally through neighborhoods got up to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, which again was really stupid. Chase says he's filming this, is shaking his head like, "Dad, you're an idiot." So we were going through some neighborhoods, going really fast, and I had a buddy with a guy by the name of John was with me, and then my really good friend Brett was with Scott Ford. And of course we were dumb enough not to be wearing seatbelts or anything like that. So we were coming up through this neighborhood, and it was called Dimpledale Road, and it ended up by Wasatch Boulevard. So Wasatch Boulevard was a main area that you could get to Big Cottonwood Canyon, Little Cottonwood Canyon. So it was a fairly busy street, and this was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. So we were hauling up this road. I'm in the back because it was my turn to tag. And so, again, like I said, we'd blown through about 4 or 5 stop signs. We were coming up to a stop sign. There was a stop sign to get onto Wasatch Boulevard. And I turned to look to see if there's any cars coming. I'm assuming that Scott turned to look as well, and we were going to fly through that stop sign and then head up Wasatch Boulevard. And there were some other neighborhoods that we were going to go play this game at car tag in. And apparently Scott thought he saw a cop, so he slammed on his brakes. I was still looking and slammed right in the back of Scott. And the guy that was with me slammed his head up against the glass, actually broke the glass, and believe it or not, the windshield, believe it or not, did not cut his head. In fact, there was a long joke for probably 6 or 7 months that he was a hardhead because it didn't break any skin or anything. He just had a bad headache. And so, anyway, we got out to look at the damage, and the damage was bad. So fast forward a little bit to the tune of $1,500 to my car and $1,300 to Scott Ford's car, which was back in 1980, which today would be $4,000 or $5,000 worth of damage to the cars. So we were sitting there looking at the damage, and I already knew right then I was in big trouble. So we're looking at it. Some guy from one of the houses close by came out to make sure we were all okay. He heard the crash, so we hurried and jumped in the cars and took off. And I knew that we had to get back to home, and so I knew that I would have to go tell my dad, So the whole time we're coming up with a story. Oh, what are we going to say if we tell him we're playing car tag? I'll never drive again. So I think we came with some story that, you know, we were just cruising and, you know, a dog ran out in front of us for some stupid story that I'm sure he saw right through. But anyway, we go to my house and I walk in. I'm, Dad, we had a little car accident. You need to come out and look at this. So he grabbed a flashlight. And my dad was a pretty quiet guy, you know, and had a little bit of a temper, but he came out, looked at the car, looked at the damage, and said a few choice words, threw the flashlight down and broke a million pieces, and he took off and went back in the house. Scott Ford looked at me and said, "I'm out of here, buddy. You're on your own." So they left me to deal with my dad, so I went back in the house, and, you know, I was in a lot of trouble, So suffice to say, you know, through all the insurance stuff, you know, I ended up spending that entire winter spending money on what should have been for skiing, on paying my dad back for the damage that was done to the car. So a lot of years had gone by, and I never really came clean with my dad that I was actually playing car tag till about maybe 10 years ago. So which would have been 5 years before my dad actually passed away. And we were out golfing one day, and I said, "Dad, remember when I ruined your Honda Accord?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I told him what really happened, and he just looked at me like, "You stupid." But he laughed about it, and he says, "Well, I'm glad you finally came clean 25 years later." And I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I hadn't." But I think he kind of knew, because he just kind of chuckled. He knew that we were screwing around and being stupid. So suffice it to say, don't ever go out and play car tag. It never ends well, and he'll end up having to pay for damages to a car. But that's my story.
Thanks.